suppose you could have effectively hit the replay button. But having said that, I'm going to nonetheless take the privilege of saying much of what he said. First, I want to add my voice of praise to our two co-chairs. I think that this effort, in some respects, has been challenged by the design of this commission. I think juxtaposed against the recent debate over national health care, it has been challenged by timing. It has certainly not been challenged by leadership. We have had exceptional leadership at this effort. Both of you are to be commended. The thing I like the most about your plan is it is a plan. And frankly, there are not a lot of them out there to address the crisis. As we continue to use the word unsustainable in describing our nation's fiscal path, unsustainable is understated. And I think we all know that. When the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff says that our greatest threat to our national security is our debt, it should be a sobering wake-up call to every American. And so, again, I applaud you for simply putting a plan on the table. And frankly, I think any American who understands the crisis has a responsibility to sign up for some plan, to be in favor of something. I have come to this table, being one of the few and proud, to support Paul's roadmap for America's future. I have supported a spending limit amendment to the Constitution and a number of proposals, some of which actually ended up in your proposal, from the Spending Deficit and Debt Control Act that Paul and I have worked on. So again, I think there has been challenges to the Commission. And I think, Erskine, if I recall right, you said that this was part of an adult conversation. And I do agree, it is one of the few adult conversations about this crisis I have been able to participate in. I would like to say, and again, I didn't mean to echo Paul in all regards, I had this comment already in my notes, but the other adult conversations about this national crisis that I've participated in have been led by Chairman John Spratt of South Carolina. Chairman Spratt is a man who has rarely have I acquiesced. He has not commanded my acquiescence, but he has always commanded my respect. He has been a very important voice in this national debate. And as he exits Congress, I hope and pray he does not exit the national debate on our nation's fiscal future. I believe that ultimately, as we look at our nation's deficit, that the deficit is the symptom, spending is the disease. As I look at the plan, and I will try to be brief, I'll talk a little bit about what I see as the good, what I see about as the bad. I believe an important part of this debate is the recognition that by broadening the tax base and lowering rates, we can promote economic growth, we can promote jobs. Bringing down the corporate tax rate to something I believe close to the median of the EU is a very important part of this debate. I know we don't employ dynamic scoring, and I know we cannot grow our way out of this crisis. But I believe if we did employ dynamic scoring, this alone would be a not insignificant part, ultimately, of the solution. And I want to applaud you for that. With respect to Social Security, personally, I believe in personal carve-out accounts. I want to use the power of compound interest to grow our way out of this. That is not in this plan. But having said that, I would be more than satisfied to at least save Social Security for the next couple of generations, including my 8-year-old daughter and my 7-year-old son, and support the proposals that you have included in this plan. And so I have been picketed before for my views on trying to save current entitlement programs for future generations. I won't say I'm happy to do it again, but I'm prepared to certainly do it again. I continue to have concern about the tax portion of this. Concern in a couple of different ways. Number one, clearly I don't favor any tax increase. I don't think we have a taxing problem. And in fact, as we all know, under CBO's, either their baseline or their alternative scenario, taxes will increase as a percentage of GDP. That's given. Number one, taxes are already going up. That's number one. Number two, ultimately, even though you put a revenue cap, we don't have a global expense cap here. And the cost of government is what it spends, not what it taxes. And I would say that is one of my greatest reservations of the plan, something that I hope that we could have achieved. And so, you know, ultimately, I'm not sure that we're going to solve the problem that way. And the third challenge I think you have on the tax increases is history is my guide. You know, if I believed that the increased revenue would actually be used for deficit reduction, you know, I might reluctantly come to the table in a global agreement, but when I look at Tefra in '82, when I look at Andrews Air Force Base in '90, it just seems to me that somehow the spending restraint never quite materializes, and yet the increased revenues do, and it seems like the increased revenues simply chase more spending. So personally, I believe, to either quote or paraphrase Winston Churchill, who said Americans can usually be counted on to do the right thing once they've exhausted every other possibility. Again, until we have the backstop of a constitutional amendment or somehow put an enforceable spending cap on, I'm not sure the right things get done. And if taxes are going to be put on the table, I believe health care is going to have to be put on the table. There's a lot of expertise at this table. I've studied these issues as a member for 8 years. I've studied it as a Senate staffer for 7 years. I can't come to any other conclusion that if health care is not on the table, you're not fixing the problem. And I do not believe health care is here. Now, I understand, again, the timing has been poor. There are those on the other side of the aisle who feel very passionately that what we passed in Congress is part of the solution. There are those of us who feel very, very strongly it is part of the problem. And I believe that also when you juxtapose what you're doing on the tax expenditure side, which otherwise is very good, I would agree with Senator Durbin, who's no longer here, you are hastening more people into the public option, something that many of us on this side of the aisle do not relish. So ultimately, I believe we must reform current entitlement programs for future generations, grandfather the grandparents. I'm willing to put defense on the table. But again, and I don't want to see any tax increases, but if they're on the table, health care has got to be on the table. And I just, you know, and I'll just end on this note, and I think I'm paraphrasing to some extent Senator Gregg. But we are on the verge of being the first generation in America's history to destroy the American dream. I do not believe the American dream is a shiny new Cadillac. I do not believe the American dream is home ownership. I believe the American dream is leaving your children with greater freedom, greater opportunity, and a higher standard of living than you enjoyed. And every generation in our country has always kept faith with the American dream. I don't know if this is the grand bargain, but if it isn't, the grand bargain should come soon. And I would remind all, I don't know if this is going to get 16 votes, 14 votes, 12 votes, 10 votes, and I've lost count of how many votes you have around the table. And I don't know you're going to get my vote. I would say this, nothing prevents our congressional leaders in this Congress or the next from bringing this plan to the floor. There's nothing magical about the 14 votes. Fine, you get a nice little seal on the cover, I suppose. But nothing prevents them from bringing this plan to the floor. Nothing prevents them from bringing Rivlin Domenici to the floor, the roadmap to the floor. Personally, I would like to see this plan come to the floor. It may come to the floor without my vote. but we must advance the debate, and I hope that we seize the moment, and I thank you.
Thank you very much. Very thoughtful.
Jeb, extraordinarily helpful. You